Okay. So we'll just start with our first question. So can you just introduce yourself and then talk about what you do for a career?
Sure. So my name is Mike Everett. I am a faculty member in the Department of Community Sustainability here at Michigan State. And specifically, I work with the Ag, Food, Natural Resources Education major students. A couple of job roles I have in my current setting. I'm currently the undergraduate coordinator for the entire department. So I oversee courses, course of instruction, teaching for undergraduate students in all three majors, whether it's environmental studies and sustainability, sustainable parks and tourism, or AFNRE. I'm also the graduate coordinator in the Department of Community Sustainability for the Ag, Food, Natural Resources Master of Arts program. And so I oversee admissions and ensure that students are moving along in a timely fashion in the program. Additionally, I teach a number of courses ranging from nonprofit organizational management to a film course, an environmental and sustainability film course. I've also taught all of the TE courses that students in the TE program have taken, including TE 407, TE 408, and I've also done the field instruction or field supervision as well. I guess finally, so currently I'm also the associate chair in the department, so I'm sort of second in command in terms of departmental aspects and moving things along, hopefully in a positive way, with a primary focus on undergraduate education.
Awesome, thank you. I didn't know that you taught some of those courses. That's kind of cool. Yep. So how did you choose your career path, and what kind of education did you do after high school?
Yeah, so it came largely out of happenstance, being in the right place at the right time. So after high school, I was on a sort of not what I would call scholarship, but I played Division III football at Olivet College. And so I received my Bachelor of Arts degree in mathematics. And from there, I came to MSU and started a master's degree in mathematics and decided that wasn't the place for me. So I transitioned to crop and soil science. And I received a Master of Science in Crop and Soil Science in 1995. And the focus of my research and projects and things like that were largely precision agriculture, so working with growers using yield monitoring technology, did a bit of remote sensing work, GPS, that type of thing in the context of geographic information systems and gathering information. And so from there, I actually went into industry for a few years, worked for a couple of organizations, and had an opportunity to teach. And so I would have been obviously emergency certified for a period of time. So a position was opened at North Adams Jerome High School, which coincidentally was down where I worked. And so that came open. So I was able to get out an emergency certification for a period of time. But luckily, as most students know at MSU, at least it used to be, you needed a major and a minor to teach. And so luckily my math degree was a major, as well as my crop and soil science. My ag background was also a major. So I was able to go through the certification process and become a certified high school teacher. And so I spent 10 years at North Adams Jerome as a Ag, Food, Natural Resource Education instructor and FFA advisor. And let's see, in 2008, actually would have been about 2007, a position came open here to come to MSU and work with the Ag, Food, Natural Resource Education program. I applied for it and I was chosen, luckily, and so I've been here ever since.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So can you talk a little bit about your background in natural resources and how you've kind of gotten involved over the years? I know you do a lot. I know like in the past, you've helped me with some like deer antler stuff and like So just kind of talk about your background in that.
Yeah, it goes way back to my high school days. So I didn't grow up on a family farm, a self-sustaining family farm. Both my parents worked outside of the farm, but we had a small 40-acre horse and sheep farm. But we had a fair percentage of that was also in sort of wetlands and woods and things like that. So I did a fair amount in terms of hunting and fishing and things like that as I was growing up. When I was in the FFA, I tended to have my SAE projects revolve around things like forestry, natural resources, less so than, say, sheep production. And it was just purely out of self-interest and direction I wanted to go. And so that's kind of how I got my start. And I think it's sort of domino effect over time, even though I've stayed sort of in a parallel path with agriculture through my crop and soil science. I've still tended to sort of lean towards natural resources. So when I was taught at North Adams, I certainly had a fairly robust ag background, and I utilized that, but I really saw the writing on the wall for the students in my program. And I think that's what sort of had me lean in directions towards natural resources. I only had, over 10 years, I think I had 2 or 3 families which largely derive their income from agriculture. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't a high percentage of my students showed at the fair. They did, participated in FFA events related to agriculture. They did some agriculture on the side, but I found that most were hunters and most were fishermen and women. And so as I thought about the program and at least some of the courses that were taught, I tended to sort of veer into the natural resources realm.
Awesome. So what kind of careers, like just from your personal experiences, what kind of careers are available for students interested in natural resources? And what might be some like common steps that students would have to take in order to get to those careers?
Yeah, so there, for those who are sort of purists, they could look at, maybe becoming a wildlife biologist. So I'm thinking of a student in high school that has some significant interest in natural resources. And they may, and there's a number of programs around the state. MSU is not the only game in town for that. There's programs, I believe, at Northern Michigan, Lake Superior State, certainly U of M, that are natural resources based. But MSU does have Fisheries and Wildlife program, which is an excellent program, and I think that leads individuals who have a strong interest in natural resources and sort of working in that biological realm to move into a career pathway, certainly. And so that's sort of one direction. If you have sort of an interest in natural resources, but maybe from an education standpoint, and I know we get a number of students that go through our program that are perhaps have experiences at environmental centers, nature centers, things like that, and even have backgrounds and experiences in schools that are focused on that. So I think that for a student that wants to go that route and become, say, a certified teacher, but they don't have sort of the traditional ag background interest, I think there's definitely opportunities there for individuals who want to go that route. By the same token, if you wanted to go the non-teaching route, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there to work at, say, the Fenner Nature Centers in Lansing or Waldemar Nature Center, Harris Nature Center. That's just sort of the local ones, to say the least. So there's a number of those opportunities out there. What I would say to those folks is, you're getting a strong education background and getting some education courses and coupling that with your interests and background in natural resources, perhaps, taking additional courses and, folks are already take forestry and horticulture and crop science, but maybe fisheries and wildlife along with some communications courses, I think could be very valuable. Entomology. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really good. So this next question I added to our list just from this little discussion here. So in general, I have noticed that a lot of FFA chapters tend to focus more on animal and plants rather than natural resources. So what do you think are some ways that either students or FFA advisors or just chapters as a whole can educate other students without FFA experience, or even just their community, like kind of educating them on natural resources in their area and getting the community more involved too?
So I think part of that is going to be, and I'm speaking very specific to the Ag Food Natural Resources school-based programs.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on where you're at.
Yeah,
I know a number of sort of urban suburban programs that are really, farm and even rural programs that are in really farm country that have a natural resources component. So they have a sort of a land lab that's more of an environmental land lab. I know one program is tied to a nature center specifically, and I think there's actually a couple of them out there. You get in the northern reaches of the state and you start seeing more forestry programs, or they're more centric to natural resources. So I think there's opportunities to do that in every community, but you may have to see what resources are currently available, and you may have to develop those over time if you wanted to go, if you were thinking about it from a teaching perspective, a school-based education perspective. Certainly, non-school based, the communication and leadership side, I think there's a lot of opportunities in local communities, depending on where you're at, whether they're very heavy agriculture communities, in the traditional sense of the word, or otherwise. And then certainly urban areas are a perfect opportunity to grow those types of things. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, definitely. So what are some common issues maybe in natural resources that people maybe don't necessarily know about or aren't educated on, and how can we get students and community members more involved in that?
I think that's a nice place for any ag food natural resources education student that comes out of the degree program, whether they go the teaching route or the non-teaching route. Mm-hmm. Is they've had some background in sustainability and hopefully thinking a bit more critically about how the environment interacts with traditional ag. And I think that's where we as educators as a whole have a great opportunity to not just say traditional ag is central to what we have to do and there is no other option, or we need to totally move away from traditional ag and we need to focus specifically on the environment. You need to really look at everything and all the pieces together and say, all right, how can we as educators teach our students, whoever those students may be, that there are trade-offs to doing both. There's no perfect answer, because we need food, but we need a healthy planet that can produce that food. So it's a interesting mix that is really, again, a great opportunity for educators to say, here's sort of the lay of the land, if you will, and how to navigate those things.
Awesome, thank you. And so our last question for you is, what are some advice you would have for someone looking into a career in natural resources?
And so I would, as I've sort of been lumping the environment or environmental type activities. So environmental natural resources is, you need to be passionate about what your career goals perceive your career goals to be. And I think that's key. I think there's lots of opportunities, whether it's working for state government, whether it's working for nonprofit organizations, or even for-profit organizations, whether it's an environmental remediation organization, or maybe Michigan Farm Bureau, looking at environmental and natural resources policy and how that can play into, to the benefit of, farming and current, farming aspects or traditional ag aspects. So I think there's lots of opportunities out there. It just depends on what you want to do. If you're sort of, as I mentioned, more of the traditionalist, the biologist, you could certainly go that route and go through, a fisheries and wildlife program, become a certified, biologist working with, white-tailed deer or pheasant populations in North Dakota, or, moose in Alaska. The sky's the limit. It just depends on, sort of career goals.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So that was all of my questions. Do you have anything else to add for future use?
Thanks for the opportunity. I think it's a really great field, the whole ag food natural resources education field. I think it does a really nice job at sort of giving a sort of this large 30,000 foot high lens, and hopefully, students in the program are thinking about the different ways to look at systems and system thinking, whether it's a traditional ag system, whether it's a river watershed, or a stream or lake or pond, and sort of how those complexities work together. So yeah, no, I think it's great, and I'm very appreciative for the opportunity to talk.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to me and just kind of offer some advice and some insight. So thank you again. I'm going to stop the recording now.